Okay, every Caniac remembers 2006. Rod Brind'Amour lifting the cup, Cam Ward winning the Conn Smythe as a rookie, Justin Williams, Eric Staal, Ray Whitney, the greatest year in franchise history. But there's one story from the cup run that most Caniacs don't fully appreciate. Because if this one thing hadn't happened, this one devastating moment that seemed like it should have ended the season, everything about how the Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup would look completely different. Let me tell you this story. So it was March 4th, 2006. The Carolina Hurricanes are the best team in the Eastern Conference. We're playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're on the road. Erik Cole is having the best season of his career. 28 goals through 60 games, 57 points, 20 goal first 20 goal season for him, first 50-point season. He's a legit top line forward on a cup contender. That night, he scores twice in the first period. He's a 30 goal scorer, career high. Then there's about 14 minutes left in the third period. Cole takes the puck down into the Penguins' end, skates to the boards, and Brooks Orpik follows him in from behind with Cole completely defenseless. Orpik drives him face first into the boards. Cole doesn't move. He lays on the ice, unable to get up. His teammates have to help carry him off. Two fractured vertebrae in his neck, one at the top of his neck, one at the bottom. And this one is millimeters from turning into his spinal canal. Cole said it later himself. If it had, then I probably would be a paraplegic. Probably the scariest sentence in sports. He was that close to being paralyzed in the middle of what should have been his best season. His hockey career was now in the balance. Doctors put him in a neck brace. He missed the rest of the regular season, obviously. Nobody knew what his future held. So, for a team that was on the verge of winning it all, losing a high scoring forward 5 weeks before the playoffs was catastrophic. And that's just talking about the team. Everybody was more worried about his health and future, right? Except then Jim Rutherford didn't panic. He made a trade. So before the March 9th trade deadline, 5 days after Cole's injury, Rutherford called Pittsburgh. He wanted Mark Recchi. Recchi was 38 years old. He'd been in the league since 1988. He'd won a Stanley Cup already in Pittsburgh. He had been an all-star. He waived his no-trade clause specifically so he could go to Carolina. Recchi's Pittsburgh teammate, Brooks Orpik, had just broken Erik Cole's neck. And now Rutherford was bringing Recchi from that team to fill Cole's spot. Nobody thought much of it at the time. Recchi was older, he's past his prime, kind of looked like a rental that we needed, right? Then the playoffs started. Recchi finished tied for fifth in team scoring during that cup run, 16 points, along with Doug Weight, who Rutherford had traded for back in January. Recchi provided the veteran presence, the winning mentality, and the playoff experience that Carolina needed when they needed it. But even with Recchi playing well, something was missing. Every playoff series felt like it might slip away. The Canes were grinding through the postseason without the guy who had been their most productive winger all year. They needed Erik Cole. So behind the scenes, Cole had been fighting to come back. He wore the brace for weeks. Then, in kind of like a secret meeting with a doctor in Colorado, the team kept completely quiet. Cole got it removed. Nobody in the hockey world knew. Fast forward to the Stanley Cup Final. Carolina versus Edmonton. Carolina up 3-2, heading back to Edmonton for Game 6. Cole traveled with the team. Nobody knew if he'd play. Right up until warm-ups, nobody knew. Then he took the ice. 11 weeks after Brooks Orpik broke his neck, Erik Cole was in the lineup for the Stanley Cup Final. He wasn't effective. He didn't score. Carolina lost in Game 6 in Edmonton, but something happened when Cole took the ice that night. Every player on the Hurricanes bench watched a guy who was supposed to be done for the year come back for the biggest games of his life. The emotional lift was unreal. Game 7, back in Raleigh, Erik Cole's in the lineup again. Carolina wins the Stanley Cup. And here's what the broken neck actually changed. If Brooks Orpik doesn't break Erik Cole's neck on March 4th, Mark Recchi doesn't come to Carolina. Rutherford doesn't make that trade. He doesn't need to. If Recchi isn't on that team, they don't have that veteran presence and playoff production that got them through the Eastern Conference. 16 playoff points from a 38-year-old who'd already won a cup. That was a difference maker. And if Cole doesn't get hurt, He doesn't have the emotional comeback story. Game 6, game 7 don't have that spark. The team doesn't get that jolt when a guy comes back from a broken neck. Devastating injury that seemingly should have ended Carolina's season changed everything about how they won that cup. Here's what happened after. Mark Recchi went back to Pittsburgh the next season. He played 5 more seasons in the league, won another Stanley Cup with the Bruins in 2011, retired at 43, Hall of Fame career. Erik Cole was never really the same. He played 8 more seasons in the NHL, traded Edmonton in 08, traded back to Carolina in 09, later played for Montreal, Dallas, Detroit. In March 2015, playing for the Red Wings, he took another awkward hit and had a spinal cord injury, same area of his neck. That was the end of his career. Came back to Carolina September 2017, signed a 1-day contract with the Hurricanes, and retired as a Cane. Because Erik Cole was always going to retire as a Hurricane. He'd already given everything to the Hurricanes. He came back from a broken neck to help win the first Stanley Cup. Erik Cole is an absolute warrior. And do I think the Hurricanes would have still won the 2006 Stanley Cup with Erik Cole fully healthy? Absolutely. But that's not the way it played out. And Erik Cole proved to be an absolute warrior, and Recchi proved to be an essential part of how the Hurricanes got through the Eastern Conference and won the Stanley Cup. So what happened back in March changed everything about how the Hurricanes won their first Stanley Cup. And the Hurricane and every single Hurricanes fan should be grateful for the sacrifice Erik Cole made for that organization, and never forget what these guys do to put themselves on the line for this team and this franchise. Go Canes.